Hello, and thank you for joining this webinar. My name is Juan Vélez, and I'm a senior executive from SDG Group. We're a global consultancy firm specialized in data and analytics. And today, I want to share some thoughts about the journey that companies have to do in order to become data-driven. But first of all, let's recap where we are. For some years now, a wave of digitalization was underway, and it was really unstoppable. All our customers wanted to become digital, and they wanted to become data-driven. And COVID has just accelerated this. Some estimates say that more than 3 or 5 years have been accelerated with COVID-19, the digital interactions with our customers and partners. So what was a wave is now becoming a tsunami that we need to manage. But our customers were already surfing this wave. They were investing lots of money in implementing data initiatives. They were implementing data quality controls in order to avoid data to become a silo. They were investing many thousands of euros in new cloud platforms with big data and artificial intelligence capabilities. They were also deploying new roles such as CDOs and data stewards and data management process in order to govern the whole data lifecycle. And they were hiring many data scientists and building new teams in order to take the most out of data. But many customers were also telling us that after all these investments and initiatives, they felt that the objectives were not being met. So what is missing here? The answer is simple to say and quite difficult to manage. Let me tell you a little story regarding how it is difficult to change the culture in people, because culture is what is missing here, a cultural change in the organization. Some years ago, some German scientists did an experiment with deers that live in the frontier between Germany and Czech Republic. They placed some GPS trackers in order to see what the movements of these deers were. What they found out is that these deers never crossed the border between Germany and the Czech Republic. And they asked why. Well, more than 30 years ago, in this frontier, there was the Iron Curtain, a physical division between Germany and the Czech Republic. But if we take into account that the life expectancy of a deer is of 15 years, what we find out is that we see some very traditional animals and conservative animals that are respecting a frontier, a barrier that does not exist, a physical division that does not exist, but that it is placed within their culture. So as Peter Drucker said, culture is strategy for breakfast. We can design a marvelous data strategy, but if we don't handle the cultural change that is needed, then we have an issue. And there are many studies that corroborate this. The cultural change and the lack of enough skills and relevant cultural change is on the top of the CDO agenda. So how can we manage these issues regarding the cultural change in our organizations? Well, we can plan a data-driven journey. We can plan the different stages that we as organizations need to do in order to become a data-driven company. The first of all will be to define the vision and value proposal for the organization. What does new data strategy provide me with? To gain C-level sponsorship from the organization. We then need to understand the magnitude of the change that we are proposing that needs to be managed. How far is my organization from being a data-driven organization? What is the data literacy level of my company? And also, use this assessment process in order to identify data ambassadors. I will go on this topic further later. We also need to design and implement a data-driven journey. We need to define a plan in order to gain this buy-in that we talked earlier. We need to define a data literacy plan in order to cover these gaps in the skills that we have in our different members of our company. And we need to implement knowledge management processes in order to share all the different findings, all the different experiences, the issues and worries of our users that will help us improve all the data-driven initiative. And it's important to start small, to think big, but start small. Start with POCs, start with pilots, with the business areas to gain their buy-in. And last but not least, it is very important to do some follow-up, to really follow up some metrics to see if the different tools, the different processes are being used, if the different users are making the use and take the most out of this new architecture and tools that we're putting in, and also provide a lot of hypercare. We need to take them by the hand and explain them how to use the new tools, what is the difference between the old tools and the new ones, and how we can help them in order to achieve the most out of their data. At the end of the day, what we need to see here is if we have really got a higher adoption of the data management and data-driven by the organization. So let me explain you some examples regarding these initiatives. For example, data literacy. Right now, we're in the middle of the COVID, and it is a marvelous exercise of data literacy, a global data literacy exercise. 2 years ago, if you ask someone in the street what does it mean to flatten a curve, they will look at you as a strange, crazy guy, mathematician. And nowadays, if we talk with someone in the street, what does it mean to flatten the curve of COVID? Almost everyone will understand this concept. So the important thing here is that it is possible to change the mind even of the people of the street. It takes some time, it takes some stress, it takes some effort. In the case of COVID, it has been a very big issue that has taught us many things. And one of them are some key concepts of mathematics in order to understand the effects of the pandemic. It's also important to teach how to read our users the data with a critical perspective. We can have data in the right manner, validated with quality, but it is important to know where does this data comes from. If we are comparing the right things, if we are comparing pears and pears and not pears and apples, if there is some gap in the information. It's important that end users feel comfortable with the information that they are analyzing. And it is also important that we guide decision with the information. We can have right data, we can have all the different topics that we saw on the previous slide in the right manner, but we need to also guide the decision. We need to, first of all, think what decisions do I want my audience to take with this information. We can think on which elements can I eliminate that make some noise from my audience, and also see if the colors that I'm using are being used with a real purpose. At the end of the day, what we need to understand is that we need to guide our audience in order to take their decisions. But data literacy and cultural change is not only about knowing how to read a report, knowing how to read some information that is being sent to us, or we can see it in our mobile phone. It is also to explain to different roles new ways of doing things. Take, for instance, the machine learning operations in a company. In this process, we need to put together business users, we need to put together data scientists, we need to put together machine learning engineers and operational technical guys in order to understand which is the role in the different process for the different experiments that business users and data scientists provide in order for them to be easily put into production in a few weeks. So it is a change in mind in what is the role of business, what is the role of these data scientists, and what is the role of the machine learning engineers in order to work together and to ease the translation of these experiments into a productive instance. So I would like to give you some tips on how can we address this cultural change, how can we design this data strategy adoption program. First of all, we need to think of it as a custom program. In this case, one size does not fit all. We need to build a custom program that fits with the reality of our organization And we need to provide continuous support. Support is very important. It's not just one-shot exercise. We need to do some initial steps and continuously provide support to our community. It's also important to bear in mind that we don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are many courses, many material in the web. And what we need to do is to build a custom menu for our organization in order to address the different knowledge gaps that we have in our community. It is also important to integrate this program within a human resources initiative. Human resources buying is very important because we're talking about changing the mind in our people. And it's also important that the program is something alive and dynamic. For that, we can create communities, we can create gamification processes, we can provide different stimulations for our community in order to engage and be part of our data management and change management process. And it is very important to find data ambassadors. For me, this is the key takeaway. Data ambassadors are key figures in the cultural change. As Albert Einstein said, to give examples is not the main way to influence others, it is the only way. We need to find along our journey, data-driven journey, which are the main data ambassadors that will help to get the buy-in from the business. At the end of the day, if we find someone in the sales department that is really keen in getting involved in data initiatives, he or she will be the one that will help us to gain buy-in from the sales department and his management. So the identification of data ambassadors is one of the key topics that we need to address if we want to implement a data-driven journey. This, and also building an elevator pitch with our initiative and building successful projects that really demonstrate the value of investing in data, will help us to change the mind bit by bit in our organization. Thank you very much for your time, and we hope that we can see you back again in person.